Hi, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Mama Robin, and if you're not new here, you already know who I am. So, everybody sit back, relax. I was going to continue my series today, my series on 11 Years with a Psychopath, but it's Halloween, and I don't have any new ghost stories. I tried to do real life stuff, but I really haven't had but the two things happen to me. I mean, I've had stuff that could be considered paranormal happen to me several times over the years, but nothing that turns into an actual story. So I thought about just sitting and discussing the things that have happened to me, and that doesn't sound like that much fun. So, of the two paranormal stories I've put up, one is an obvious favorite. So I'm going to do a retelling of the one that is favorited. So here goes. As I've said in other videos, I'm originally from Kansas City, Missouri. Okay. And this was many years ago. I was in my 20s and I had an apartment of my own. And my brother is 12 years younger than I am. And he had a best friend, and his best friend was at an age where he was older than my brother but younger than me, almost in the middle between the two of us. And I don't remember how they met because they are that many years apart. I don't remember how they met, but they did. They were best friends. And on Friday and Saturday nights, they would come over to my apartment. Usually either or, Friday or Saturday night, sometimes both nights, they would come over to my apartment. And we would hang out and eat pizza and watch scary movies or whatever. Music videos. This is many years ago. I was in my 20s. I'm in my 50s now. So we're looking at 30 years ago. There wasn't a lot. Cable was a new thing. MTV was fairly new. I don't even think VH1 was out yet. And I was the only person with an apartment on my own. My brother still lived at home with mom and dad. And his friend still lived with his parents because his friend was a single dad with a little boy. So he had moved back in after his relationship had ended, and he was left with a little child, so he had moved back home. Now, I'm from Kansas City, Missouri, so a little bit of history on Kansas City. Kansas City's known for a few things. It's known for a good barbecue, but it's known for high crime. And it's known for beautiful fountains, like the Country Club Plaza out there has gorgeous fountains. Gorgeous. But it's known for crime. And one of the bigger crime areas is an area called Swope Park. Swope Park is many, many, many miles. Like, it covers a big chunk of the city. And Kansas City by itself is pretty good size. A lot of people, when they hear Kansas City, they think it's Kansas, and it's not. It's Missouri. What they don't realize is, number one, it's not. First of all, they always automatically assume Kansas. They're always shocked to find out that Kansas City is also in Missouri. Another thing they think, though, is, oh, well, then it's just two cities, both with the same name. No, no, no. Kansas City spans Missouri and Kansas. That's why there's a state line road where you're literally on Kansas City. You know, one side of Kansas City, you're in Missouri, and the other side, you're in Kansas. But whatever. Kansas City's pretty, I don't remember how big it is, but it's pretty good size. If you consider both sides of the state, both sides of the city, Kansas City, Missouri, and Kansas City. Kansas is pretty good size. But anyway, it's known for Swope. And Swope Park is a big part of Kansas City, and includes the Swope Park Zoo and Starlight Theater. Anyway, Swope Park is big, and it's a high crime area, and there's a small lake out there that they dredge once in a while, and they're always finding cars and dead bodies. And ugh. Well, like I said, this was many years ago. I was in my mid-20s, and I'm in my late 50s now, so this has been many years ago. But one particular Saturday night, my brother and his friend, and I'm not going to use their names because I don't have permission to use their names, but my brother and his friend were over on a Saturday night, and we had decided they were going to come over and eat pizza and watch movies like they usually did. And I think one reason I was picked was because I had my own place, so they didn't have to hang out with their parents. they had me. They could come over and hang out with me. And like I said, I'm 12 years older than my brother, so we're going to say he was in his late teens. So that would put me in my late 20s. And he had decided, they were over one Saturday night and they were going to eat pizza and spend the night. Well, usually we went to bed around midnight, 1. And this particular night, it was around midnight, and instead of going to bed like they wanted to, or like we normally did, they wanted to go to Swope Park. Why they picked Swope Park, I have no idea. I don't know. Part of me felt like this was planned out to a point, like it was planned out to get me out there and scare me, and then it backfired because something happened they weren't expecting and they got scared themselves. I kind of feel like this was planned out, but whatever the case may be. So my brother and his friend were going to go to Swope Park, and they wanted me to go along, and I didn't want to. Matter of fact, I tried to get them not to go. I tried to talk them out of it, and they were dead set. They were going to go. Headstrong, they were going to Swope Park, so I thought, hell with it. I'll go with them. So I did. I think my intentions were to keep them out of trouble. I don't know what good I was going to do, but I went with my brother and his friend. So we pull up on the back end of Swope Park, and we're traipsing through the forest, the woods, whatever. We're traipsing through the woods, and it was around 12:30 at night, and we're walking uphill. We're walking up an incline, and we about 15 minutes into our walking, we came across like a little babbling creek ran through there. So we stepped over this creek, and it was right around Halloween time. So anyway, we cross this creek, and we keep walking. About another 15 minutes into it, we come across this kind of a cleared out area in the middle of the woods, and it had this large boulder in the middle of it. And it had a very flat surface, almost like a table. And it was about the size of a picnic table. I mean, it was a big boulder. It was flat. And on the ground, all around this boulder, were little white tea light candles. And there was also scattered about the ground was bones. And I don't know if they were chicken bones, people bones, dog bones, cat bones. Don't know what kind of bones, but they were small. And I don't want to know. At this point in my life, I don't even want to know. There's just been so much happened to me since, So anyway, we come across this big boulder, had a flat surface about the size of a picnic table. Sorry, I feel like I thought I was going to sneeze, and it turned out I had to yawn, I guess. But anyway, and I still feel like I need to sneeze. Excuse me. Anyway, so there was this boulder, and it was about the size of a picnic table, and it was kind of a flat surface, and there was little tea light candles, and there was no flame on them. They had been extinguished. There was bones on, and there was a dark substance, a dark red substance on the ground that looked like blood. Now, I don't know that it was blood. I didn't touch it. I didn't smell it. I didn't taste it. I tried to avoid it. So we're standing there, and we're looking at this, and I personally think this was planned up to this point. I think they had every intention of bringing me out here for whatever reason, knowing that I'd go. And I think their intention was to scare me. But they got scared themselves. So anyway, all of a sudden, I kind of glanced up the hill because I thought I heard something. And at the top of the hill was this figure up there. And it looked like it was wearing a cloak. I couldn't see a face. Couldn't tell if it was male or female, but it was a black, shadowy figure. I couldn't even tell if it was solid at first. But I kind of elbow my brother, I nudge him, and I'm like, look at the top of the hill. So he looks up and he sees it. You can see his expression change. You can see his expression change from, this is kind of fun, to what the hell is that? And so he says something to his friend, called his friend by name, and whispers, take a look. And we all take a look. And all of a sudden, his friend looks at both of us, and he says, run. So my brother, who is like 6 foot and I'm 5'3", grabs me by my wrist and yanks, gives me this really hard yank. And he's yanking me his direction, and we're running back towards the car. And I mean, we're running, we're hauling ass. So it's my brother in the lead, me in the middle because he yanked me his direction. Then his friend was behind me, and we're running. We're not like jackassing around. We're running. We're hauling ass. Um, we're not sure what it is, and at different times, one of us, of course, would look back to see if whatever this was behind us, and it was behind us, and seemed to be closing in on us. So we're running, and because, like I said, it was about 15 minutes to the creek. We crossed this creek, and then about 15 minutes beyond the creek. So we're getting ready to cross the creek, and we crossed the creek, and I don't remember if all three of us looked over our shoulders at the same time. I think we did. I can't remember for sure. You got to remember, this was just a little bit more than 30 years ago. Probably more like 35 years ago. Well, no, because I would have been in like 20, so we'll say 28, and I'm 58. So 30 years ago. So my memory on this story, as much as I remember it, as well as I remember it, some of the finer details of this have escaped me finally. So we cross this creek, and we look back, and the figure stops. It will not or cannot cross the creek. That didn't matter. We were still running. Well, shortly after I realized it wasn't following us, I still had every intention of running, but I had broken free of my brother's grasp. He had a hold of my wrist, and he's like 6 foot, and there's trees, and he's lifting up these branches to flip them over his head. And they're swinging back and hitting me in the face. So number one, I'm tired of getting hit in the face with tree branches. And number two, this thing wasn't chasing us anymore, so while I still felt the need to run, I didn't feel as much panic. However, I broke free, and in my effort to break free, I lost my balance, and I ran face first into a tree. Well, when I ran face first into the tree, I fell back, and I landed on my butt. Well, his friend was behind me, and he came up behind me, and he put his arm under my armpits, and he scooped me up, and he looked at me, and as I got to my feet, he hit me in the back and screamed, "Run!" And I take off running again. So we run. I can feel that my lip is all hurt. I can feel a couple of my teeth feel messed up. I hadn't taken the time to look, obviously. Oh, and you've got to remember, this being 30 years ago, there was no cell phones. There was no cell phone lights. We were armed with each boy had a pocket knife on him, and the friend had a flashlight. So that was all our weaponry there. So we're still running, even though he stopped. This shadowy thing, had stopped at the creek. We were still running. We ran all the way to the car, and we got in the car. We looked, and it was still at the creek. It was still watching us. It was still at the creek. We got back to my place. I went into the bathroom. I had split my lip. There was literally, like bark in my gum and in my bottom lip. So I'm picking this out, and I've got blood on my face. I got blood on my shirt. I didn't care. We were tired. We were worn out when we got back. We were hot, sweaty. In my living room, I had an oddly shaped living room, but it was rectangular shape, more of a rectangular shape. It was long, and I had a couch on each. Like, you come in the front door, and directly across at the end of the room was the TV set. Then against either wall was a couch. So each boy would take a couch, and then I went off to my bedroom. I had my own bedroom. So when we got back after I cleaned myself up, I put on my jammies and I went to bed. I was exhausted. I was worn out. I was tired. I don't know if they went to sleep or not. I went to sleep. Now, we went back the next morning. I don't know why, but they wanted to go back the next morning, so we went back the next morning. And the rock was still there, and the bones and candles were still there, and the substance on the ground was still there. It was dry now. It still kind of like blood, but I don't know that it was, and I don't know what kind of bones these were, and I don't know what that thing was that was behind us, but it was behind us, and it did stop at the creek. I don't know if it stopped because couldn't or wouldn't cross the creek, but it didn't. And it wasn't there anymore, of course. They had done whatever after we got in the car and left because we weren't looking back, or at least I didn't look back. Um, and now, ever since then, there has always been problems in my home. Nothing major. Like I said, there was a time that me and my daughter thought we heard my ex-husband come in the door. Even though we didn't hear his truck and we didn't hear the door shut, we thought we heard him say, hey. We both thought we heard it at the same time. Like, hey, I'm home. I turned to face him and go, hi, honey, how you doing? Anyway, throughout my life, ever since, there has always been small things like shadows out of the corner of my eye, doors shutting, things flying off a shelf in my direction. I remember one time I was with my youngest in a different house, and we literally watched a steak knife come off the counter and land in the floor. Now, it wasn't sitting on the edge of the counter. It didn't just teeter off. It was more in the center of the counter, and it came off, went about a foot or so out, and landed in the floor. We've seen that happen with different objects. We've seen shoes come off shelves. I've seen doors shut. I've heard noises that don't sound like they belong. And this was all over the years, so I don't know if I brought something back with me that night. I honestly don't know. I don't think I did, because nothing malicious has happened. But I have had things follow me, or what seems to be things that have followed me for the rest of my life. Or from that point to now, and probably for the rest of my life. I'm always seeing stuff out of the corner of my eye, or a shadow that doesn't make sense, or hearing a noise that doesn't fit, or things like that. I don't know. But since I didn't have a new Spooktober story this year, I thought I would retell the original, the one that kind of started it all. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button. If you want to hear more things like this, because if I go through and write things down, I can recollect small stories that I can tell. Hit the like button. Subscribe. Give my information to a friend. Let them watch videos. Have them subscribe. But I am Mama Robin, and that was my real story. That's a retelling of the original. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Like I said, like, subscribe, ring the little bell, do all the little things. Have a beautiful day and a spooky night.